We've got, documented 23 different types of extraterrestrials, most of them being good people.
During my lifetime, I've personally been in front of extraterrestrials of 3 different types. The Norwegians with 24 teeth, the Greys from Roswell, tall whites, who I encountered routinely out in the deserts here in Nevada. They're all flesh and blood creatures. They all have men, women, and children. They're all surprisingly like us, okay?
When I got out in 1989, we had cataloged 57 different species.
And back in 1954, Tompkins stated in Selected by Extraterrestrials that there are 19 different alien civilizations on or visiting this planet. Page 254. Well, hello. My name is Klaus, and yes, I am the Grousing Gazer, and in this episode, we are going to review William Tompkins' book, Selected by Extraterrestrials, with a focus on the reptilian species and their agenda. But first, a quick review. The Day After Roswell series showed undeniably the existence of UFOs, and the Disclosure episode showed undeniably that the government and military officials were required to lie in their standard operating procedures. Selected by Extraterrestrials, Part 1, established William Bill Tompkins' credibility and exposed the Nordic alien species. The opening clips of Part 2 showed that where there is one alien species, there could very well be 2 species, or many more. It appears that the latter is true. I call this next segment the Douglas Aircraft Fight of the Century, Reptilians versus Nordics. Because in this corner you have manufacturing, controlled by reptilians wanting mayhem and failure through continued purchasing of obsolete and clearance equipment for their Apollo Stage 5 final production systems test. And in this corner you have the think tank, controlled by Nordics. They want to further the humanity's advancement into space through helpful telepathic suggestions to their selected humans, such as Bill Tompkins. Oh, what a blow! Manufacturing has failed to use engineering specifications. These purchasing decisions now affect the quality control of 9 major companies and 14,000 contractors on the Apollo program. Reptilians transform their appearance to blend into society. Tompkins and some of his engineers witnessed the transformation when the manufacturing department showed up for a meeting. Let's see what happened. 2 guys appeared that could look just like Jessica's brothers, but their eyes had that zombie look. Bill calls out, "Don't look at their eyes!" One engineer comments, "I thought aliens only came in girls." One engineer recognized that they were not human, and they were evil, especially the tall guy, which gave him, quote, "the creeps," end quote. Bill agreed that they were not human. The third engineer lost track of the 2 zombies from manufacturing. But just as the meeting was about to start, the zombies were spotted, turning into reptilians. The tall one, with no sound, yelled back, his face twisted with hate, and the other one appeared to hiss. "Yes, Bill, but for just a moment I think the tall one clawed at us too." Did you see their grotesque-looking feet? You might think that this is just an interdepartmental spat over people not getting their way. But when your employees transform or morph into hideous creatures, you gotta take note. Another reptilian transformation is described on page 229. Steve Thorson, one of Bill's colleagues, approached Bill when both Jessica, Bill's Nordic secretary, and Cliff Noland, Bill's number 1 in charge of the Apollo project, were present. Steve calls out, quote, Bill, I saw him turn. This guy, he turned right in front of me. I swear it. The turned into a reptilian just like you told us last month when we were out on Service Tower 34. Remember? End quote. Bill tried to calm him down and asked if he flew in this morning. Yeah, I came right over from LAX. We were up on level 114. His slimy eyes were like a potato bug, and he almost knocked me off the railing, and his tongue forked out at me. I almost fell off the tower. His hands, too, were like claws. Jessica and Cliff identified the creature as Orville Gilson. Steve pipes up. Yeah, that's him. He hunched over. It didn't stay reptilian for very long, though. I faced away and went back to human real quick. Seeing him change up close was real scary. Just awful. Well, that's enough of me talking. Let's listen to Tompkins' interview with Carrie Lynn Cassidy to see how the Reptilians helped the SS during World War II.
I was selected by some people in the Navy, Naval Intelligence, to essentially be assigned a program to discuss the U.S. Navy secret space operators who have been operating in Germany, trying to understand the tremendously complicated agreement between the SS and the Draco Reptilian group who were assisting Germany. They actually had large facilities that they utilized as in underground facilities in Antarctica. The Draco Reptilian people had two enormous caverns, and I don't want to get off into that subject now. We can talk about it later. But there are caverns all over this planet which different extraterrestrial civilizations have been using, okay, for thousands of years.
The Draco Reptilians helped the SS develop a secret space program during World War II. But before the end of the war, they moved their base of operations from Germany to Antarctica. Another video will be made to review Michael E. Sala's book, Antarctica's Hidden History, to expose the Draco and the secret space program. And speaking of Michael E. Sala, PhD, he also wrote Galactic Diplomacy, Getting to Yes with E.T., where on pages 176 through 181 he writes about reptilians. There are several species. One species is native to Earth and the other species come from other star systems. R.A. Boulay has extensively analyzed a variety of historic sources and stated that there is significant evidence to support the conclusion that an ancient extraterrestrial race of reptilians inhabited the Earth and played a role in the creation of humanity. By combining the characteristics of the native ape man with their own saurian nature, they produced the Adam of the Old Testament. This Adam was half human and half reptile. The Homosaurus was modified and given more mammalian traits. There was the biblical fall of man, where Adam achieved knowing or the ability to reproduce sexually.
Actually, this is not your planet. This is their laboratory.
UFO researcher John Carpenter has analyzed case abductions involving reptilians, where abductees find them to be hideous, rude, and aggressive. Using the abductees' accounts, he has come up with the following description. Reptilians are 6 to 8 feet tall, stand in an upright posture, they have lizard-like scales, they're greenish and brownish in color, with claws and webbing between their fingers. They have a face that looks like a cross between a human and a snake, with a central ridge coming down from the top of their head to their snout. Reptilians have cat-like eyes with vertical slit pupils and gold irises. Their manner usually is intrusive, forceful, and uncommunicative. They've often leave claw-like bruises and scratches on their abductees. In addition to performing their own abductions, reptilians are also seen supervising short greys in their abductions. According to one case examined by Dr. Joe Lewells, the abductee found that 3 greys were accompanied by, quote, a taller being who had a very different appearance. He looked like a monster. His head was big and seemed to come to a point toward the top. His eyes were huge and seemed to protrude from his face. There was no hair, no eyebrows, no nose, but a chin and mouth area that looked reptilian. He had claws for hands and moved slowly and observed and directed the activities of the greys. Nera Isley, a radar specialist in the United States Air Force in the late 1970s, quote, witnessed reptilians on several occasions during her involuntary recruitment into covert military operations, end quote. Quote, in one incident, she describes being taken on a secret government spacecraft with 2 extraterrestrials on board, one of whom was a reptilian. Well, one of them, Grays, was piloting the spacecraft. The other, reptilian, was in the other seat. There were 2 other human beings on board in the other 2 seats. There were a total of 4 seats, end quote. Thomas Costello, a former security official at a highly classified base near Dulce, New Mexico during the 1970s, has more controversial claims. He witnessed a number of ET races cooperating with the United States national security agencies and corporations. He claims reptilians indigenous to Earth work side by side with humans and other ET races. Some reptoids, reptilians, are native to this planet. The ruling caste of aliens are reptilian. They are an ancient race on Earth living underground. Reptoids rightly consider themselves native Terrans. We are considered the squatters on Earth. Since I was the senior security technician at the base Dulce, I had to communicate with them on a daily basis. If there were any problems that involved security or video cameras, I was the one they called. It was the reptilian working caste that usually did all the physical labor in the lower levels of Dulce. The lower levels of Dulce involved extensive human rights abuses on captive civilians by joint ET human project leaders, end quote. Linda Moulton Howe, investigative journalist and UFO researcher, interviewed Jim Sparks' contactee/abductee and wrote an article in Nexus magazine, Volume 7, Number 2, titled Meetings with Remarkable Aliens. Linda writes that Jim Sparks meets a number of reptilians indigenous to Earth. They have their own unique culture and have assisted humanity and used humanity as a resource for millennia. Reptilians have reached several agreements with national governments. Reptilians are not openly hostile to humanity, but rather concerned with how humanity is threatening itself and other species' existences. This segment was paraphrased from Sala's book, Galactic Diplomacy. Now, let me get into the juicy details and let me quote from Linda's article. Jim Sparks was happy, married, and thriving in 1988 at the age of 34, when he comes face to face with other aliens from other worlds. He was completely conscious through most of this interaction, including the agony of being pulled from his bed. First, Jim hears a low-pitched whirling sound in his head, like a whip going around in the air. Then, the whirling sensation in the pit of his stomach moves up to his chest. Once it reaches his heart beats faster and becomes tremendously loud until it screams in his head. Quote, "The fear is like you're going to die," end quote. The heart is racing with an acceleration feeling like you're being pulled down. When you're going down a roller coaster, Jim passes out, and then he's there. When Jim comes to, he is literally descending 1,000 feet into the middle of a semicircle of a dozen reptilians at an abandoned carnival park. The reptilians are humanoid creatures standing at least 6 feet tall. A hologram of a human face glows over their faces to disguise their appearance so Jim isn't so apprehensive. The first thing Jim hears in his mind, telepathically, is, quote, "We, reptilians, would have given it, knowledge, to you, but we knew it wouldn't have meant anything unless you earned it," end quote. The lip movements of the holograms were out of sync with the telepathic communications. "We contacted your leaders because your planet is in grave trouble. Your leaders said the vast majority of your population wasn't ready for anything like us yet, so we made time arrangements with your leaders as to when your people would be made aware of our presence. This part of the agreement has not been kept. We also agreed that in the meantime, steps would be taken to correct the environmental conditions of your planet with our advice and technology. We say advice because we respect the fact that this is your planet, not ours. Your government broke that agreement." Jim couldn't help asking, "You're not going to give up on us, are you?" After a long pause, quote, "No. We are concentrating our energy on the average person. Your air and your water are contaminated. Your forests, jungles, and trees and plant life are dying. There are several breaks in your food chain. You have an amount of nuclear and biological weapons, which include nuclear and biological contamination. Your planet is overpopulated. Warning, it is almost to the point of being too late, unless your people act now. There are better ways of deriving your energy and food needs without causing your planet any damage. Those in power are aware of this and have the capability to put these methods into worldwide use," end quote. To further the discussion, Jim asked, "Why aren't we putting these methods into use now?" The reptilians matter-of-factly stated, quote, "Those in power view it, technology for clean energy and abundant food, as a military and security threat," end quote. Well, Jim replied angrily, quote, "You mean to tell me our people in power have the ability to save and better this planet and they aren't doing it," end quote. The thought that technology was being held back from the public because of paranoia and greed outraged Jim, and the aliens saw his anger. Amnesty. Jim was confused. "What do you mean?" Quote, "Complete amnesty to those in power, the governments and the leaders who have been suppressing the truth. They can't be held liable for past wrong deeds. It is the only way that these leaders can come forward with the truth. It's necessary that you do this in order to work together and survive," end quote. During Jim's discussions with the reptilians, it started to rain and no one was getting wet. Jim surmised that they were being protected by some sort of electric field. The meeting was over, but before it broke up, Jim wanted to see what the reptilians looked like. He was astounded by their response. Quote, "It will strike fear in your heart," end quote. Jim answered, "It won't scare me so much if you don't stand there and stare at me. It would help if you just wave at me. Just don't stare. Promise me you'll wave." The strangest thing started to take place. A spinning white light with a hint of green began to radiate over their faces and upper bodies, all dozen of them. The intensity of the light slowly got brighter, and it was radiating from no direct or detectable source. Jim could see they were huge. Their upper torso was strong with huge shoulders and a thick, strong neck like football linebackers. As the light became brighter and details clear, fear and shock zapped through him. Jim said, "You have scales." Their faces looked like a cross between a lizard and a snake. Their eyes were small like ours, only diamond-shaped, and the pupils were a red color. Their heads were in normal proportion with their bodies, but bigger than ours. The skull looked like their brains stuck out over their foreheads, covered by skin. This feature was slightly different among all dozen of them. Jim said with a scared whimper, "You promised to wave." Sure enough, each and every one of them slowly raised their arm and waved in front of their faces. Their hands were huge with thick, club-like fingers, too thick to work fine instruments. But you have to keep in mind that their technology is thought-activated. Jim understood the reptilians' nature and agenda. They are neither benevolent nor evil. Quote, "I believe they have been farming us for raw materials. We, humans, have been a self-perpetuating crop, a crop that doesn't need much tending and continues to reproduce. Thank goodness they don't kill us. They just use us. The system has worked well for the aliens for some time. But now there is a problem and their investment is in trouble. They have spent a lot of time, travel, and effort to farm us. But we are almost on an inevitable path of self-destruction. Nuclear and biological weapons and their waste have polluted the air, land, and water. Forests, jungles, and trees are being cut down and are dying. Now there are breakdowns in the food chain, and the rest of the food chain is contaminated. Overpopulation, disease, and viruses beyond our grasp, with new and more complicated illnesses cropping up every day. These are just a few of the problems we humans have created. But if we environmentally destroy ourselves, the aliens still have an excellent insurance policy. They've been collecting seeds from plants, animals, and humans through semen and ova extraction. The aliens can start us or other Earth-like all over again, here or somewhere else. Anna Hayes echoes Jim Sparks in her book, Voyagers, the Sleeping Abductees. She writes, quote, "Those black budget boys aren't coming forward with the truth because their are on the line. They've got all the secret organizations out there who have taken advantage of this knowledge while everyone else goes to hell. That's why the amnesty makes sense. The BBB guys can tell the truth finally about alien contact, getting alien technology, making money from it, and even maiming and killing people to protect the secret. With amnesty, they can come forward with the truth and won't be prosecuted," end quote. So what are the aliens doing? Quote, "They are farming us, they are cloning us, they make organs from us, all kinds of stuff. They have their own interests," end quote. In essence, the aliens are trying to get their crop from self-destructing so they can keep on harvesting what they need. Wow, that is quite a support team. You've got Anna Hayes, Jim Sparks, Linda Moulton Howe, Thomas Costello, Naira Isley, John Carpenter, R.A. Boulay, and Michael E. Sala, Ph.D., all acknowledging the existence of reptilians as in William Tompkins' book, and sharing some of their experiences with reptilians. I have one more experience to share from the book selected by Extraterrestrials. That is a confession of repeated rapes of Roger Fleming's test flight manager of Douglas Aircraft's 19-year-old daughter, Nancy Fleming. These rapes were committed by a group of reptilians, pages 263 through 268. Handling rape cases isn't Tompkins' forte, because he's a little awkward with his questions. But Nancy's father did want Tompkins to help her if he could. Tompkins' strength lies with Nordics, but he does have experience with reptilians. Roger Fleming must have spoken to Nancy prior to their get-together, because Nancy expects William Tompkins to be, quote, the who knows everything, the expert, end quote. Tompkins is trying to find more earthly assistance rather than jumping to extraterrestrial perpetrators. Nancy confesses that she's being raped in the car and at home in bed at 2 in the morning. She feels that they can rape her any time they want. She has lost control. Quote, I have no control over myself. I am not myself. I feel like someone else. I am looking for a place to cover up and hide all the time. This isn't me. Someone has taken over my body and mind and is inside me. It's as if they're making me one of them. They are converting me into them, end quote. Nancy also has something inside her upper leg, possibly a tracking device. Tompkins feels, quote, a hard callus on the inside of her skin, end quote, and finally asks the right question, quote, what do these creatures look like, end quote. You would think that would be a revealing question, but Nancy never sees their faces. Bill tries again. Are they nude? Sometimes. They often wear a tight material like skin. What color is it? Silver blue. What color is the skin in the tight outfit? Light green or brown, was the reply. Bill shows his inexperience now. How do they get their privates out? Do they have a zipper? Did he get an earful? Quote, how the f do I know? It's always dark and I'm scared out of my mind. I'll ask them to f***ing me next time and grab them, and I'll examine their stuff for you, end quote. Roger Fleming did take his daughter to the family doctor, and Nancy was diagnosed as, quote, just delusional, end quote. Note to audience, what about the implant? Did anyone x-ray the implant? One last comment from Bill Tompkins.
The public needs to know about this. The country needs to know about it. The planet needs to know about what has taken place.